Hello and welcome to this conversation that we are having with Angela Warburton. Angela lives in Canada. She practices just outside Toronto, but you can find her online. And she has a YouTube channel. She has a couple of websites that have got some really good resources. And of course, we will share them afterwards. So Angela, welcome to this conversation. I am really excited about hearing more about you, about what you're doing in the world. You are part of this change that is happening, and your training, your wisdom, your experiences are shown and shared through the resources that I have had the joy and pleasure of looking at. And also, which we'll get onto, you have created a kit for us for Monara. And we will speak about that. And I'm so excited to get to know a little bit more about you. And let me just introduce you a little bit further to our listeners. So, Angela, what I know about you is that you are a midlife expert. You have over 25 years of experience with traditional Chinese medicine and holistic healthcare. You are committed to transforming the woman's experience and our cultural narrative of midlife, which is so needed. And of course, our menopause and how your mission in life is to help women transform on every level, so that she can live her most radiant life. You're an inspirational speaker, an author, a teacher, a practitioner, and you guide women in this powerful way to enhance their innate nature of knowing. And what it seems that you do is you give women the confidence to acknowledge, but also to listen to what it is that this time of life is showing them. And by opening up this conversation, and through, your YouTube channel and the conversations that you've just written a small book, and through everything that you're bringing, it is helping this conversation to connect around this global phenomena, the thing that we all go through as women. So welcome. Thank you for being in this conversation with us, with me.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. I love, I just love Monara. I love the oils. And it's just anytime I get to speak about this whole topic, women, midlife, but just the shift that's happening for women and the shift that we need in our culture, it's an absolute honor and a joy. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. Do you want to speak a little bit more about part of your, some of your journey that got you to this point, so that people can understand a little bit more about you? You've got a wealth of training under your belt, so to speak, and you really embody, when I look at what you've been training in and what you have explored from traditional Chinese medicine, but also death doulaing, and understanding these cycles in life. There's a deep embodied you carry, and a passion that's there. But what do you want to tell us a little bit more about where you've been and how you've got here, so that we can get to?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, because sometimes we don't, like I often say, life has better plans for me than I have for myself, and I couldn't have figured it out going forward, but looking back, it all makes sense. And so much of my work, it's personal and professional. I like everything that's gotten me here. So the reason I got into Eastern medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, was for my own health issue. I'd been looking around. I've always had an interest in health, and my mom has been a huge influence. I was always exposed to natural forms of healthcare, so that was always in me. And I was struggling with my own health condition that took me to Eastern medicine, helped like a huge amount. And that just it's one of those visceral, every cell in my body, as soon as I went in, it's like, this is what I want to do. And I just love that it was so holistic. And then I started to work in Eastern medicine, but then my own journey took me to other things, the death dueling, because I had a lot of death in my life at a very short time. So trying to make sense of that, but then also supporting people. I work in integrative cancer care, and I would support people in end of life. So wanting to have more tools on that. And then everything that I do, I have a background in nutrition, Western nutrition, dietetics. I have just all kinds of different things because I love learning. But I was always feeling though there's something else that wants to be tended to here. And then with the midlife work, it was really as I approached my midlife, my late 40s, I started to not feel great. I started to, notice some changes. And I just had this narrative of like, oh, well, yes, here it goes. It's downhill now. And there was a little voice that was like, what are you talking about? And so then I just took a step back and I'm like, I don't have to feel terrible. I know there's a reason with Eastern medicine, every symptom, there's a reason, whether it's, dry eyes to hangnails to waking up at a certain time the night, it's a pattern. It's there. And so we use the symptoms to guide us to what's out of balance. So I knew that my body was talking to me and I could do things to support it. And Eastern medicine has this beautiful view of midlife, and it's called the second spring. And it's this rebirth that comes. And so it's like this, it's like cycles of life. And we have, spring and then summer and then fall, we kind of shed, and then winter. And then there's a new, second spring that comes. But then I started to look around and look at and hear about the narratives that, what people were talking about. Oh, menopause, here we go. Or don't tell anyone, or make sure no one knows that, or try to stay young as long as possible, or just like, this is going to suck. And and then I looked at how we were representing older women in our media and culture. And I thought, this is not right. That it's really this stepping into this third stage of life. It's a life transition, just like birth or puberty takes us to a new stage of life. This is a new stage of life. And what's possible? And what is the wisdom that's there? And what is being called forth? And I love this idea that we're shedding what isn't working and that we're stepping into what we're born to be even more. We know ourselves better. We have experience. We know what we like. We know what we don't like. And life, through symptoms, through discomfort, through irritations, through whatever, we're being called to listen and let go so that we can harness our energy, because we have energy. It's just different than when we were in our 20s and 30s. So we can harness it and use it for the things that are most aligned with us, most igniting, most inspiring, most the place where we want to actually put our life force. And really what I think is what we're born to do. It's just been getting us to this point. I really think at 50, we're just getting started. And that's really where we have the most impact, the most delight, really, because we're really, hey, I know who I am. Ideally, we're like, oh, you know what? I've spent so much time worrying about whatever everybody else thinks of me. I just can't do it anymore. And it's like, here I am. Like me? Great. Don't like me? Okay. But this is where I'm going. This is what I stand for. Let's go. And so all that takes courage. But what I found, I sort of going around in my own life, that's where I sort of started to notice that, oh, I'm coming up against things. What do I want to do? And then in the clinic, I noticed so many women getting medicated, feeling like, what's wrong with me? I used to be able to do this. Why can't I keep going the way I was? And trying to stuff them back into this old box that just doesn't fit. So I always say it's like sticking, when you buy a pair of shoes that are really cute, but they're just a half size too small, and you keep trying to shove your foot in it. And it's like, it hurts. And that's kind of what happens when we try to go back to how we were living, even though it worked in our 30s or early 40s, we're stuffing ourselves into a box that just doesn't fit anymore. And so it's like the courage to make that shift. And so what I found were a lot of women were coming up with the same narrative, they were coming up against the same stumbling blocks, having a lot of similar symptoms, which are really common in North America or Western culture, but not normal, meaning menopause isn't we've medicalized it a lot to make it about a lot of terrible symptoms, which people do have, but that's really not what it is. And that's more of a sign of imbalance. And what I found is the more women that kept trying to stuff themselves in these old ways were feeling terrible, that was part of the problem. I'm like, okay, we need to take a step back and look at what's going on here so that women can claim this time, understand their bodies, what the symptoms mean, take action to feel better, and then come out refreshed and aligned on the next stage of life. So it's really this, I think, long-winded way to say it's been this, I'm fascinated by the body, the mind, the spirit, healing, and the journey of life. I love supporting people, just helping them find, like helping them understand. And it's all been fueled by my own journey as well. So what do they say? Your message is your mess. Like everything I teach, often I've had to go through myself as well. So that's really the duo that's got me here.
And it sounds like, what you're bringing is this more empowering approach to this very natural cycle that happens in life. And certainly when I listen to certain conversations, there's this way of pathologizing or everything that you were just saying, it can be very disempowering. And another thing you said that I thought was really interesting of like, okay, here we go. It's almost like I remember when I became a mum, sort of standing behind the pram, it's like suddenly I felt invisible. And it was that kind of approach. I was like, wow, what have I picked up in the environment around me that would actually make me even think that? So in this this cycle of the menopause, and what you're bringing forwards is a more empowering approach, but also getting people to understand that your body is talking to you. Yes, there will be symptoms. I certainly, a lot of people get hot flushes. I see that as burning away what you no longer need. And yes, it can be like, surprising, but
Yeah.
also there's another aspect to it, isn't there?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that. A lot of people say it's like burning away what isn't needed. I find this was for me with hot flashes. I didn't have them for long because I started to like, what's going on? Listen, but it was a lot of women have reported like that. And this was for me too, the emotional side of it. So one woman, she's like, if I don't express what's inside, it's going to express through my pores and sweat. So she's like, if I'm like, no, it's like, if I say it, I don't sweat. If I don't say it, I sweat. So it's coming out one way or another. And it's when I noticed when I started to like be hard on myself or shame myself, I'm like, oh my God, why did I say that? I'd sweat. And it's like, maybe I'm not going to shame myself for stuff. Maybe I'm going to actually recognize what I feel and express it in a healthy way. Maybe I have every right to say no instead of yes here, or whatever it is. And so it's like trying to pull back. It's like getting curious. When does it happen? Why does it happen? What else? And just instead of, I think we've got this disconnection where we've cut ourselves off a bit at the head. What do I think? And science is amazing. And I love the blending of Eastern and Western medicine, but we have to understand we're an ecosystem. We're not compartmentalized like a car, or we can't just hermetically seal a part of us and it doesn't interact and have an impact on the other part. And so that when we get curious, that's what I try to get women to do, is pay attention. Your body's talking and it will whisper, and chances are patterns that were there in the 30s and maybe early 40s that I always say like a whisper, they become a scream in menopause because the body's like, hey, stop, come on, stop. But we have a buffer of like hormones and estrogen that can keep things at bay. And then menopause, it just takes all that buffer out. And it's like, stop it, stop it. It's just like becomes, like I say, from a whisper to a scream. And that's a lot of the symptoms we are commonly associating with menopause in our Western world, our body screaming out of the imbalance. And a lot of it with Eastern medicine, I know, we have this yin and yang, that sacred cyclical balance of everything, each in right relationship, each in right amount. So like day follows into night, into day again. And if you just had day, it would skew things, or heat and cold, whatever it is. And so we have this sort of yin yang balance that should be there, but we have such a yang culture and way of being. And what a lot of the work I do is looking at the distortions of the yin and the yang. Both the masculine and the feminine have had healthy ways of expression and unhealthy. And we have a way that we've diminished so much of our intuition, our inner knowing, our rest, our, the desire to rest, or for sure in midlife and menopause, to go inward, to be quiet, to disengage a little bit, to find ourselves again, because it's an inside out job. This is not an outside in. And we have an outside in world, people telling us what we should do, this diet or this exercise routine, and it's like, you can't bypass that inside out. And it's really that internal world that's more of that healthy yin. And then when we have insight, inner awareness, we understand, then we take action, which is more that yang or the healthy masculine side. And when we, so much is operating from the what do you think, or how much we produce, or what's the science, or what's the logical side. We're kind of, it's squelching this part and that's a lot of what we see in the imbalances would come down to like a yin deficiency in Eastern medicine. So we're burning up our estrogen to get things done, to have, to produce more cortisol, and we're kind of living, this is where that imbalance happens. And so, yeah, I don't know where I started on that. I sort of went around, but
You. And it feels, as you were speaking, what became apparent to me, it's this opportunity for what has been unconscious, things that you've been acting out of and perhaps not really aware of why, becoming conscious, like you mentioned, shame, and realizing, oh, that's why I'm doing it. So even that part there, realizing, oh, that's what that's why I do that, because of shame, which we may not have been aware of in our sort of younger years. And then it gets to a point where it's like, oh, I see, I know why I did that. And it's in the awareness of that and acknowledging that, of going, oh, that's what that is. So there's an understanding and the wisdom of understanding and following the trail of like, okay. And it's almost like, you can't act the way, not act, you can't behave in the same way as you were behaving, because your body, your spirit, your this opportunity at this time of life is just really showing up a mirror of like, not in a shameful way, but of like, this is where this has got you. Do you want to take it with you? There is,
yeah,
where your voice needs to be heard, where you need to be, it's like you've picked up all this wisdom to get to this stage, and now
yeah.
you have that.
Well, and I think that just so beautifully said, like, do I want to take this forward? Is this so you can, like, we pick up so much along the way. We've got lots of great skills, like we've all had jobs or things, and it's like, do I want to do it? I can do it. And there's a difference between being proficient or good at something. Yeah, I can do that. But like, I always tell women, or invite women to listen to their body. Like, when you, even I can see it when I'm working with women. It's like, okay, so do you want to do that? And they're like, ugh, like they just close down. And it's like, okay, maybe that's your no, that's a no. And then it's like something else is like, oh my gosh, yeah. And they just like open up. And it's like, we need to follow I mean, that's part of the feminine, is it's in the embodiment, the yin, the internal, like, how does it, following those body sensations and feelings, and definitely this time, this transition, like puberty. I don't know how old your kids are, but like, puberty is not easy. It's not easy for anyone, but it's a process and it's necessary. And so we need to go from childhood to an adult, to be a fertile adult in that particular transition. We need to go through, and it's like to pretend like puberty is like, oh no, let's make puberty go away so you can stay a child. Let's just do that. It's like, that's what we're doing to women going through menopause. Oh, we'll just give you hormones and we'll just, just make this go away so you don't have to do that work. It's work. It's going to call forth something different in us, and things will come up. It really is going to bring in to focus things that are not, we haven't dealt with, that are, still like open browsers. I sort of, if you have a lot of open browsers, it's just you're leaking energy. And so it's like, we need to close down some things. I don't want to do that anymore. This relationship needs an up level. We get in ruts and things work for a while, but we're programmed to change. Life is a cycle, like constantly going through different cycles, whether it be creative, energetic, relational, emotional, seasonal, and life cycles. And so when like something's ready to change, it's going to be really uncomfortable if we're not like, no, I don't want to see it. And so that part of that menopause transition is really, like, as you said, those old things coming forward to be seen. And I think of it as composting too. It's like the leaves fall off the tree to go to the ground to create new fertile soil for new life that's coming. And so when we process and we understand, and we like understand what the wisdom is, or we deal with it, that actually gives us more fuel and more insight and more energy for what's going to be birthed next from that. Yeah.
What's popping up as I'm listening to you is the rite of passage. It's a rite of,
Yeah.
that actually modern day culture that I witness has lost touch with. And that's not everywhere, because it still exists in certain communities, and I certainly see more of it coming back. But this rite of passage that I think is vital for every human being to understand not only their strength and their power, but their access to something more that they can call on as they're going through life, whether that's calling in the family or the community, or knowing that you can lean on others, but you have to go through this rite of passage. And listening to you, that's what's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I think those it's a spiritual journey, however, and it's an internal, and we can, like you said so beautifully, rely on our community or other people, but no one can do it for us. And that strength, you talked about, as a mom with the pram, and I know my friend, she had a baby, her baby was like 11 pounds or something, and it was a big baby, and it was a hard labor. And she said, those first couple of days in the pram, and she'd see another mom, and she'd like, we can do hard things. She's like, we got this, we can do it. And she just found that strength that she wouldn't have necessarily signed up for that. Like if they said, it's going to be like this, she would be like, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you very much. But that through that transition, the challenges that come going to that depth, we find a strength, a clarity, an inner knowing that we couldn't do any other way. We can't bypass it to come out the other side, but we can do it. And that there's so much wisdom that can come through, and so much insight and power, really, because we're claiming ourselves, I think, through this process. It's really stepping into those wise woman years, the elders, okay, I've got something I'm here to express now. I know that. I know. And so I think that's so beautiful to watch women do that, and to be a part of that. And even for myself, I mean, it's ongoing. But it is. I wouldn't change it. Like I wouldn't, if someone said with anything in my life, and I've had many things, like as I said, I wouldn't have signed up for necessarily, but I'm so thankful that they happened. And it's given me my depth. It's given me strength. It's given me insight that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think it's just finding meaning and being curious is such a huge part of this process too, I think.
Absolutely. And once you've been through the experiences that you've been through by the time you've reached this age as well, for me, certainly I can call on, it's like, okay, I made it through that, therefore I know that I've got it to make it through this.
Exactly.
Compound effect of, okay, I've still got this. I know I've got it, what it takes. And life can be incredibly beautiful, and it is a huge blessing. It's huge. Yeah, it's such a gift, and it can be extremely challenging. And so, one thing that came up when you were speaking, another thing that came up was, I remember my daughter when she was quite young talking about some wrinkles, and I was like, they're wisdom wrinkles. And I remember her hearing her talk to a friend recently, like, yeah, but they're wisdom wrinkles. And it's this narrative of reframing the narrative of what this stage of life is about. And when I say reframing, not to it's actually to acknowledge what it is, rather than another narrative that is about trying to stay young, and honoring each part of the journey.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. There's a quote I love, and it says, that she smiled, and what is it? She smiled, and the lines around her eyes crinkled in the way that makes a woman beautiful, or something like that. It was just that, but the wisdom wrinkles, and it's like, I think, faces get really interesting. They change, and I notice, like, I pay attention to my face too. When I look a certain way, I usually am feeling that certain way. So if I'm looking like I'm stressed, I usually am. So if I look in the mirror and try to, instead of making it go away, oh, whoa, okay, I just need to take a little time for myself. I need to refresh. I need to, whatever that is. And so instead of, trying to just look a certain way, but it's really how we feel as well. And I think something you said just tweaked it too, that I don't want to discount that a lot of women are suffering with real debilitating symptoms, and it's hard. And that we do need extra support in that time because bodies are talking. And so there's like the natural transition through menopause, and symptoms are common but not normal. I mean, they don't have to be there, but if they're there, your body's trying to get your attention, and it's real. There are real health risks, or there's things that we want to work hard so that mid post 50 and when our estrogen drops, we are at more risk for certain things. So paying attention to that, getting support for that, and there's lots of support, whatever people want to do. I am a big fan of all hands on deck. Let's use the best of all the medicines in a way and that's unique to the person. Integrative medicine, integrating medicines and modalities, but integrating the whole person to the healing too. And I work with women every day in the clinic using herbs. Essential oils is like, oh, I love them obviously so much. Food is medicine, but lifestyle medicine, all of that. And then people can choose to do other things too, but not to make it all sound like, oh, it's going to be hard and just go through. And I know neither one of us are saying that, but just also it's like, and get support if you're really struggling.
So glad you said that. Absolutely. It's not about denying something or pretending it's not there or that it isn't real. It
Yeah.
is. And if
Yeah.
the to you, use it as a guide, use it as your way of telling you what it needs or for you to get support in that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about the oils. Let's talk about the oils. When did tell me a little bit more about your journey with the oils and some, if you would like to weave in a couple of, we'd love to talk about your kit as well that you've created.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's so fun.
get so excited about talking about the oils. So take whatever I just said and make it your own in the answer that
Sure. Well, I've always loved them. I've always had them around my house, but I was like, oh, that smells nice. I wasn't quite sure what to do with them, and I'd have diffused them and I'd put some in a bath or I'd play a little bit with them. But it was actually Tiffany. One of my clients said she had actually spoken in a group that she was part of, and she said, oh, you might really like this woman. And then she was doing a training, and I think it was the first oil. Obviously, as a Chinese medicine practitioner, I understand acupoints. And it was the first oil I put on, and I just burst into tears, and both of like a release and also like my body was like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this. And so I just immediately, it connected with something deep in me. And I immediately started to put the oils on acupuncture points. I started to use it in the clinic, and I noticed effects on people right away. And it just felt so right because the oils are so wise and powerful and helpful and something that people can utilize so easily in their day. So it just became, so I just have oils everywhere. They just are now part of my life every single day. And I use them in multiple ways. And women love them too. I find that they naturally, I think the same as me. I just didn't know what to do with them, but I love them or I have some. So I'm a huge thing I do is educating women about what I know and how to use it and how to understand, just like that medicine, food is medicine, balance, it's all balance. So it's like how to recognize what oil might be helpful. So that's really the kit that I came up with, is working with women in midlife. What are the common symptoms that I see? It's common patterns emotionally, energetically, physically, spiritually that are coming up. And I've picked oils and paired it with acupuncture points that I find really effective. And so it's like really about resetting, coming home to ourselves, helping to soften some of the edges, because a lot of women, myself, this was a big thing, irritations, like everything can be a little more abrasive feeling. It can be like harder edges. So how to like soften and integrate, but how to go inwards, how to reset our nervous systems. Because I find so many women, they're in sort of adrenal overload or with deficiency, or like I lost all my words there for a second, but they're depleted in some way. So how to replenish and balance out that nervous system so they're not in a constant fight or flight state, and we can actually build up a little bit. So it's sort of, they can be used individually. I also have it as a bit of a journey. So I've had like sort of some here, if you're feeling this, and like reset and then soften and then replenish. And so I've got some hormonal balancing oils in there, some nervous system balancing ones, some to help with the gut and just absorption, because we know so much is in the gut microbiome is has such a huge impact on women's health in midlife for sure. And when we're stressed, that gets so impacted. But they're all part and parcel of the transition. So helping women with the wisdom, integrating the wisdom and feeling good in the process is really what the intention was. So there are 9 oils in the kit, and it's called the Radiant Woman. That's my business. Everything I do is about the radiant woman, because I believe that when we feel good in our body, when we understand, we have that vitality, we know who we are, and we're aligned with what we're born to do, because each one of every woman has something she's born to do. She's good at naturally, that she's interested in, that she's just as a spirit. And so when we have those parts aligned, we just radiate naturally from our heart, and that we feel good and we're magnetic in a way of in being in the world, and we can spark other women or other people as well. And so I think, to me, when we're living and embodying our radiance, that's where huge change happens in the world. So everything I do is about that, helping women to connect with that part of themselves. And so it's so the oil kit is called the Radiant Woman
Yeah,
that we've done.
excited to try out your protocol with it as well. It's a really lovely kit. And if you were to give someone that was listening one top tip, because of course it's a holistic view. So one top tip is a tip, but it's part of a holistic view. And just while I'm saying this, go and check out Angela's website. She's got some great resources there you can download. There's some meditations there that are all for you to try out. And this is all part of your holistic approach that I see you bringing, and all of the richness that you bring in your sharing of your own personal journey, but transforming into empowering education for those going through this journey. But if there was one top tip to give them right now that worked with an oil, what would that be? What springs to mind? And I know it can change on different days and there's no pressure because it's not, but just right now, if there's something that pops to mind for someone to try out, what would you recommend?
I think I'm gonna be sneaky and combine a couple in one. I think one of the most important things for women to do in this transition of midlife is to carve out time for themselves, to be quiet, to be removed from we're so inundated with noise and media and information or people. And I'm sure every woman's got so much on her plate, but to carve out time every day to be like, close the door, ideally, if you can get to nature, and you can pull an oil with you, like even one oil, almost like a daily ritual with yourself, a date with yourself, a moment to just connect in and listen. So to be still, no multitasking, nothing else, and use an oil. I'd say like some of the ones I love to use, bergamot, just to reset, do it on the ear point, black spruce on the inside arch of your feet, something that will just reset, and do that daily. You can find whatever one person needs, but then just to carve out, start with 15 minutes, if you can do a little longer, and then listen inside, because there's so much wisdom. The answers are there, and it's just sometimes getting quiet enough to hear. So that's probably one of the biggest tips that I would recommend.
Absolutely. And just to mention that, using these oils in a properly diluted way is really, really useful. So when you say use black spruce on the inner arch, we recommend diluting, and
Yes.
Monara does have the diluted oil that you can purchase, as well as the bergamot. And the point that Angela's talking about is ear shen men, which is just at the top here in the little pocket. We can share a resource around that, and bergamot, I believe, and black spruce are in the kit.
They are in the kit, and I created a little postcard for the kit with like the oils, what I use them for from the midlife, and what point, and sort of describes what point, and they can look them up. But yeah, just to really encourage, like I said it before, we have such an outside in world. People are always telling us stuff about who we should be or what makes it valuable or how to, and it's like, I think one of the biggest things I do with and work with around women is like how to listen internally. What do you want? So with the oils, like there's great acupuncture points, but listen to your intuition. Where do you want to use it? Where are you called to put it somewhere? Trust that. And then be safe. The dilutions like bergamot, you make you more sensitive in the sun. So be careful, like all those things. And then trust your inner guidance. And that's what we say, the divine feminine, the yin is like that inner knowing, that guidance that comes from that underworld of like, it's not necessarily easy to see it until we listen, and then it comes up. And that, I think, is the magic of this transition of midlife, listening and then taking action from that place.
Absolutely. And one other thing, just to add to that before we start to wrap up, is this aspect of being curious, not
Yes,
being curious. Okay, what happens if I do this? Oh, what happens if I do this? And then in that curiosity, you build up the confidence of like, and the knowledge of, oh, that happens for me. Okay. Because one way isn't right over another way
exactly.
or experience. And that is part of the beauty of working with oils, I find actually, as well as midlife.
That's such an important point, because so many people will say, like, because we get so much information about take this, it'll help with this, and your hot flashes, or and so people take it and they're like, I don't know, I don't feel great. And it might work for someone, but it doesn't work for someone else. And we're so unique. Every person, every spirit, every like body is unique. And so I love that you brought that up. Curiosity is such a gift for this at any stage, but for sure at this stage.
Oh, Angela, it has been lovely to talk to you. I feel like there's so much more that could be spoken of, and please go and check Angela out. Of course, I'll share the resources and your web links. But is there anything else you'd like to share with everybody that's listening that might be helpful to point them towards getting to know about you? Obviously, we have the Radiant Woman kit available on Monara, and you can find out more there. And Angela's done a great job of creating the resources for you as well. But is there anything else you wanted to add in closing?
I just always just want people to know, no matter where you are, no matter what you're feeling, that there is hope and that there's a reason. And so there's always answers. And it's just that curiosity, seeking help where you can, but listening internally, and that life is trying to get somewhere through you. So trust that there's something even more aligned for you on the other side. And that this is a stage of life that isn't always easy, but it can be challenging, but there's a method to the madness, if you will. There is a reason for it. And so to try to have that curiosity and delight where you can, and just really, really, really honor and respect whatever you're feeling, because that's the hugest part of this transition, is definitely uh, the inside world and honoring. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's such a good opportunity for connection in many different ways. And thank you for opening up this conversation, for sharing your wisdom, for, getting out there, being on YouTube, and yeah, bringing your wisdom through your experience, but also through your studies, to bring this conversation globally. And
thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I do. If anyone is interested in this, I do multiple YouTube videos every week. So that's a great way to get just little bite-sized bits to just plant the seeds of how to change, and I do lots with oils and foods. So if someone's interested, that's probably the best place to get a sense of it.
I'll share all the links. Thank you so much. Really,
Thank you.
bye for now.
I thank you.